Hello and welcome to My Emotional Armor, the podcast where we discuss the effects of covert narcissistic parenting. I am your host, Khoo, a survivor and robot warrior here to share the ways emotional armor can help you heal, stay safe, and regain your sense of self. Hello, my polite robot friends. I hope everyone is feeling peaceful and safe these days. I know many of us are stuck at home with our CNPs or having to interact more than maybe we'd like. Whenever there's any sort of uptick in current events, especially if it's negative, this often gives the covert narcissist in our life a perfect soapbox to complain about how everything is personally affecting them more than anyone else. It's also an opportunity for them to deny what you may be experiencing because they have it so much worse. It really doesn't leave much room for discussion if your perspective is denounced every time it's not in praise or agreement with your CNP. Now, today's topic is somewhat related and actually comes in from a listener. This person brought the interesting subject of whether covert narcissists are trying to hurt you on purpose, or are their actions more subconscious? I like this question because I think it's one that victims often ask themselves when they're trying to justify their CNP's actions. As children, and even as adults, we don't want to think ill of our parents, but there comes a time when we do realize their actions have been quite hurtful. Now, if you're an empath or a highly sensitive person, which is often the case in these codependent and meshed familial relationships, you've likely tried to make sense of your parents' toxic behavior. As a result, many of us will explain away their insults and rage by saying, well, he didn't really mean it, or she didn't intend to hurt my feelings. Or another thing we'll do is use all the good things they've done for us as justification. And I'm sure your CNP did provide for you in many ways. That causes cognitive dissonance, which we'll talk about in another episode. But let me get back to this question at hand of, does a covert narcissist hurt you on purpose? To explain this, let's look at the opposite of doing something on purpose, which would be doing something on accident or by mistake. When you make a mistake, you apologize and you don't do it again. For example, you hurt a friend's feelings. Let's say you canceled on them at the last minute and they were very disappointed that you couldn't make their plans. You would apologize. There may be some explanation as to why you canceled, but ultimately you would not do it again. And this is a healthy, normal interaction. Now, by contrast, a covert narcissist will hurt you. We know this. When they rage, for example, they may see the fear in your eyes as a scared child or even as an adult, and for this, they may even apologize for yelling and getting out of control over something small. But the difference is they have no intention of changing anything so that it doesn't happen again. And you know as well as I do, it's going to happen again. So I don't think a CNP has a vendetta necessarily to hurt you on purpose. It's more accurate to say that they simply don't care. And they reveal this by saying things in their apology like, gosh, I didn't realize you were so sensitive. A person really has to watch what they say around you. Or, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. And it's in the intonation where you can hear the sarcasm, which CNPs are masters of. And obviously, you know this. If you call them out, they'll just gaslight you and use it as more ammunition as to why, again, you are so sensitive. This brings me to the second part of our listener's inquiry, which is, are their narcissistic actions subconscious? The answer is yes and no. The way they act comes from a deep-seated insecurity and need for external validation. So when they exaggerate about their hardships, which is commonplace for covert narcissists, in a way, it's like a reflex because they need that, "Aw, you do so much," from the person that they're talking to. Now, could they tell the truth? Yes, of course. So in this way, it's not really subconscious. It's a purposeful decision that over time becomes more of a bad habit than anything. For example, a covert narcissist may run into an old friend, and in the course of catching up, the CNP may go into this long-winded story about how they're taking care of their mom all by themselves. Everyone's moved away, and they're left all alone in the house day in and day out doing all the cooking and cleaning and so on. The friend will nod sympathetically and say, "Gosh, what a good son or daughter you are. I don't know if I could do that." Now, in actuality, the family is nearby, maybe even living in the same house. There may even actually be a housekeeper to cook and clean. Now, clearly, the covert narcissist knows who lives with them, and yet he or she is choosing to make the situation sound worse than it is in order to bolster their image. So in this way, it is a conscious decision that happens almost like a reflex because they've done this for so long. In fact, Debbie Mirza, a researcher and author on covert narcissism, says in her book that covert narcissistic behavior really starts to reach a boiling point after age 50. So by this time, the CNP in your life has been exaggerating to paint themselves as a victim for 30 years plus. So in terms of the example I just described, what do you, as the son or daughter of the CNP, do if you hear your parent telling a stranger this sort of half-truth? My advice, stay out of it. Let it go. Calling out a CNP never ends well, especially in front of a stranger or someone you're never going to see again. The blowback you will receive is far too great and not worth it. And you'll notice that's a major theme of dealing with narcissists in general. It's just not worth it. So let's bring this back full circle to our original question. Do covert narcissists hurt you on purpose, or is it subconscious? My answer? Does it matter? Bottom line, this person is lying and saying hurtful things to you. Who cares what their reasons are? How you respond, whether that's gray rock, polite robot, or no contact, stays the same. I get that you want to understand your parent and show empathy, and that's a wonderful quality that you have. But don't get hung up on trying to psychoanalyze them. And certainly do not make excuses for the way they've treated you. Save that empathy for the people who are actually trying to empathize with you back. These are the people that when they hurt you, they don't do it again. They apologize and they mean it. It's a true, I'm sorry, not a get out of jail free card. The time you'll spend trying to figure out your covert narcissistic parent is in vain. They don't appreciate the effort, and it really won't change anything. In fact, if you try to even compassionately broach this with them, you will likely be met with anger because, God forbid, they have something they need to work on. So if you can, I urge you to take all that energy you've expended in trying to figure out your CNP and use it to reclaim yourself instead. You've spent far too long tiptoeing around their landmine of a personality. It's time for you to tap into your beautiful subconscious and live your life on purpose instead. Thank you again for tuning into this episode of My Emotional Armor. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe and leave a review. And if you have any topics you'd like to hear about on the show, please fill out the contact form online at myemotionalarmor.com. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, stay safe and armored up.